Welcome to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast on Mintwave Radio and all podcast platforms. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer with an online program and would like to find out how to grow your business whilst having fun podcasting, go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. Let's dive into today's episode.
So welcome to the show, and I'm very excited today. We have a very special guest. His name is Paul Lemberg, and he coaches entrepreneurs to accelerate their business growth, to develop themselves personally, and have a fabulous time doing it. I love that. I'm all about enjoying your work. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about, growing your business and having fun along the way. So I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and experts just set up, launch their own podcast to turn them into sales machines to get their message out there. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Karen. It's good to be here.
And look, you've been doing this for a long time, right? Since 1996.
That scares people.
It scares people.
Somebody told me yesterday that my LASIK was older than their kids.
Stop. So you've been doing this a while. You've authored 3 books. You've got an MBA. You're also a member of Mensa. So where do we start? How did you start? What was your inspiration around doing this, helping entrepreneurs be profitable and grow their businesses?
I'll tell you the short version of the long story. I have a fine arts degree, and I got out of college and I didn't want to be a starving artist, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I got a message, which I believe was divinely inspired, to go into the software industry. The message, it was just a voice, was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I had no training and no skill and no education and nothing. And somehow I got a job. And I worked in the corporate world for 3 years, which was my absolute limit. People with ADHD find themselves in jobs because they're supposed to have jobs, right? But you get into this job in this corporate world, and the corporate world suits a lot of people. And then it absolutely did not suit me. I was working at I got fired from a job at Deloitte's. I worked at Deloitte's. This is my first corporate job. And after a year there, they said to me, you are the best person who's ever had that job, this is the job that I had no training and no education and no experience and no anything. They said, you are the best person who has ever held this job, and you will never fit in here. And so they fired me, but they got me my next job, which was a job at General Electric, for which I was actually perfectly suited. But after about 2 years there, and I did very well and I loved the work, I said to myself, they're never going to let me run this place. And I knew that was what I was suited to do, and I wasn't suited to be somebody working in a corporate job. So I ended up starting a software company with a guy who I met. He was my client while I was at GE. And we started a software company, and we ultimately sold that company. We failed our way to success. We were bankrupt, and we were trying to raise money. But this was at a time where people didn't invest in small software companies. So we ended up selling it to one of the people we were trying to raise money from, which was great. I got fired from there because it was another corporate gig and I didn't fit in. And started another software company, which I ultimately sold to a large German bank. So I did my startup phase and I did my corporate phase. And I said, what am I going to do now? And everybody I knew, all of my friends were telling me I should go become a coach. And coaching was brand new at the time. And I should go become a coach. And I'm like, I don't want to be a coach. I thought it was like therapy. And I was like, I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to listen to people's problems all day long. Like, I don't want to do this thing. But everyone I knew was telling me to go become a coach. And I have two sayings which work together, which is that one is, if everyone around you is wrong, you're not being coachable. I heard this in my head and I was like, oh, I'm not being coachable, am I? And then the other one, which is, I have a mosquito buzzing me. We just got a ton of rain and it brought out the mosquitoes here. I live in Mexico and I live in a place that's generally dry and relatively low bug, but the rains always bring them out. The other saying, which to me is just as important, is when God wants you to hear something and you're not listening, God will put that message anywhere and everywhere. And so I started thinking about this and I was like, everybody's telling me I should be a coach. This must be a divine message. So I became a coach. And that's how I ended up being a coach. I had done a little consulting before that, but I realized that this wasn't my life's mission. And I, at that point in time, figured out that my life's mission was helping other entrepreneurs to be more successful. And that's what I've done with my coaching career. I got into it because I had gotten this divine message, and it turned out I had a problem. And the problem I had was I was a great programmer. I was truly inspired. I was inspired. I got given the job divinely. I was inspired. I was a fabulous programmer. And inexplicably, I left that world. I didn't want to be in that world. So I despaired of doing something that well, because nothing I was doing subsequent to that was anywhere near that good. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience where you find yourself doing something that you do amazingly well. And if you're not doing it anymore, you're like, am I doing the right thing? When I got to coaching, one day I woke up and I was like, oh, I'm that good at this. And I was so happy. To me, that's one of the secrets to being happy, is being great at what you do. Because doing what you do and being okay, and even if you're making money at it, but if you're sucking at it, it doesn't leave you with a lot of joy and satisfaction. And so I had struggled through these various places that it took me to get to here. But all of a sudden, I was like, oh, I am that good at this. And I have enjoyed this ever since.
Brilliant. And I know you're obviously very good at this. I know that one of your clients sold his healthcare chain for over $100 million. So there are many other business coaches out there, right? But you must have some kind of magical process with this if you're getting these kind of results for your clients. So how do you do this for entrepreneurs?
There's a couple of pieces to it. One of which is, I have worked with so many businesses that I really understand business at a bedrock level. And whenever I'm teaching in front of a room, I always ask people to raise their hands if they think their business is different. And usually 60 to 70% of the people in the room raise their hands, right? Because everybody thinks their business is different. But the truth of the matter is, almost nobody's business is different. There's very few businesses out there that are really like, oh, my business is so different that the normal rules don't apply. And it's my understanding, after doing this for 28 years, I say that really quietly. After doing this for 28 years, I'm pretty certain that most businesses have the same moving parts as other businesses, and they all work the same. So that's where I start from. But what that leads that's not a unique understanding, but where it leads a lot of business coaches and advisors of all stripes is that they have a model that they use, and it's a cookie cutter kind of a thing, and they try to fit everybody into it. And I've had this experience myself where I've hired advisors and they've tried to shove me into their box. And I'm like, I don't want to do it that way. That's not how I want to do it. It's not going to, it may or may not work for me, but it doesn't matter. I don't want to do it that way. So one of my secrets to success with my clients is I don't ever try to shove them into a box. I have a big bag of tools. I have a big bag of tools that have been proven to work. And so the cool part about that is I find the right tools for the right business. And even though every business is different, they all function in largely the same way. So you have to just figure out which tools are going to help them get where they want to go. So that's a key part of it. Another key part of it is I never ask a client to do something that they don't want to do. And again, a lot of coaches and a lot of advisors are like, no, this is how you have to do it. This is the way to do it. And if you do it this way, you'll be successful. But the clients don't necessarily want to do it that way. They have a way that they want to live, and they have a way that they want to run their business, and they have a way that they want to deliver value. So as a coach, I find the appropriate approach for them that A, is going to work for their business, but B, is going to make them happy doing it. And those two things really pay off huge dividends for the clients.
Yeah, because we are all different. And if there was just one way, then everybody would be doing the one way, wouldn't they? But there are so many different ways to grow your business. And I can completely relate to that. I've had coaches in the past that we've parted ways because I didn't want to do things in a certain way. It is horses for courses. If you're not enjoying the journey, because everybody's focusing on the end result, but you've got to enjoy the journey. Otherwise, you're not going to do the work, or you're going to resent the work or the energy that you put behind that work. You're not going to get the right result because you're resisting it unconsciously because you're not enjoying the process. That's why I say for me, it is all about, you've got to have fun with it. And this is speaking I'm definitely an ADHDer. And I suppose this is why I love doing the way I'm doing it. Doing a podcast is not the way for everybody to build their business at all. But for me, it suits me. It suits my personality. I enjoy it. So that's the way I'm going to go. So I love that it's not, because I think there are so many coaches that do fall into that trap of trying to put people in boxes and it's just this one way. So basically what I'm hearing from you is that you've got a big toolkit that you can pick out what is the right thing for different people, because we're all going to be working with, there's different ways to do it, right?
I'm also very metrics driven, which drives a lot of people crazy. But it drives, some people. People all say the same thing. They all say, oh, I don't like math, or I'm not good at math. And it's so funny because I know you're good at math. You got through grade school. You got through grammar school. You got through high school or public school, whatever it is you call it. You got through school, and school includes a basic course in arithmetic. And you had to pass that to graduate grammar school. So I know you're good at math. So people go, oh, I don't like math. And I'm like, I have 3 words for you. It's get over it. And having a good set of metrics is what helps keep the whole thing on the rails. There's this other silly saying, which people have said and written books and made money. It's do what you love and the money will follow. That is utter nonsense. Just because you love something doesn't mean it's going to make you money. On the other hand, do what you love and you'll be doing something you love. And that is really important. Again, life is short. Malthus said life is nasty, brutish, and short. I don't know about the nasty and brutish part, but it's definitely short. And if you're in a work situation which is taking up, let's say, if you're an entrepreneur, a minimum of 40 hours a week, and you're going to do that for 30 or 40 years of your life, if you're doing something that you don't really love, it's going to be nasty and brutish. But no matter what, it's going to be short, and it's do something you love. And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people
Mm,
struggle with finding something that they really enjoy. So they settle for doing things that they don't enjoy. And I won't work with clients who don't love what they're doing because
mm,
I just don't support that way of running your life. I think it's really important to enjoy your life. It's like you only get one. Werner Erhard always used to say, he says, this is Werner Erhard's the man who founded EST. And one of the things that Werner said all the time was he says, this is not a practice life. This is not a practice life. So if you're doing something that you don't enjoy, like, why are you doing it? So you only get one shot at this. Now, depending on your spiritual beliefs, you come back and your soul, if you don't get it right in this lifetime, your soul may come back and want to do it again. But the conscious part of you, the ego that's the human being, that part doesn't get to experience it again.
mm.
And so
But
the ego part of you only gets to experience this life that you're awake in. You may as well do something you're going to enjoy.
absolutely. But you said it earlier, so many people fall into the trap of doing things because they think they should do it. Yeah. They're not following their purpose. They're not following their passion. They might have gone into something right out of school or right out of uni or wherever, and they've taken the job on because of the annual salary. Then they've got themselves a mortgage and then they feel stuck. Notice I said feel because they're not actually stuck, but their perception is that they're stuck. And then now they can't pursue what they're really passionate about. And I think that's a shame. However, the flip side, like it's funny that you just said earlier about be careful, right? Doing what you love. I built a business around doing what I love, but it wasn't sustainable and it wasn't scalable. I come from the fitness industry and I love teaching fitness. And my dream was to own a fitness studio, which I did for 8 years in the Algarve. But I had just I just paid, basically bought more than full-time job because I wasn't just teaching, front of house, sales, even in the beginning, cleaning. We did everything. So it was more than a full time job. And the business had been built around us, two people, a couple, running it together. So might be great for the ego, not so good for taking holiday or time off. And it wasn't scalable. So there be a point doesn't necessarily go together. But when you have a good business plan and a good way to scale it, then yes, you can combine the two. So finally, I'm doing that. But would you start with somebody who do you actually work with? Entrepreneurs is a very wide, big umbrella, right? Who do you love working with? And what else do you think sets you apart from other business coaches?
So I don't work with people who are just trying to figure it out. They can't afford me. But I do a lot of that pro bono stuff. Friends know what I do and they come to me for help and I'm happy to help them because I love what I do. But when I was designing this business, I had a few really important criteria. And one of them was that all I really wanted to do was think for a living. Because I wanted to think for a living and I wanted to talk for a living. Those are the things I enjoy the most. So I created a business where that's what I get to do. I get to think and I get to talk. And I also created a business that had the potential to make me a fair amount of money. Potential didn't mean it would, but it had the potential to do that. And that I could do it from anywhere in the known universe. That was really important to me. I could do it anywhere there was an internet connection, and I could carry a microphone with me, and I could do it from anywhere. My favorite place to work is Bangkok in the middle of the night. I have this quirk, which is that if it's warm out, like I really mean hot, if it's hot out, I love working at 2 or 3 in the morning. There's something about being up late at night and having the windows open and having that hot breeze come in. I just love it. Can't tell you why. So my favorite place to work in the whole world is Bangkok. And I end up working with coaching clients who are probably in the US somewhere. They may be in Europe, but they're never in Asia. And there was a period of time where I had a batch of clients in Asia, but for now, for the most part, they're 6, 8, 10 time zones away. So I'm working at 2 or 3 in the morning and the hot air is blowing in and I love it. But that was all by design, that I could do my work from anywhere in the world. I've realized that the 60 countries that I've been in is just not that many for people who have really been traveling a lot. But it's like I built my business so that I could do that. So you asked me who I work with. And the entrepreneurs I work with, their businesses typically range from $500,000 US to around 5 or so million. I have coached the CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies, but that's not my sweet spot. I don't do politics very well. And that's mostly what their problems are. And I've coached businesses that are 50, 100 million, like that. But my normal client is typically $500,000 to $5 million a year. And they have goals to 2x to 10x their businesses. So I work with people who want to grow and they're willing. People come to me and they say, I want to be a billionaire. And I'm like, yeah, I probably can't help you. It takes a lot of work. They say, I want to be a billionaire. I'm like, no, you don't. I say, you have young kids. If you want to be a billionaire and you're working towards that right now, you're probably never going to see your children. Yeah. So you have to have goals. I assert that it's good to have goals that are appropriate for the lifestyle that you want. And there are people who want to be billionaires, but most people who are billionaires didn't engineer it. It was a series of accidents. Doesn't mean they didn't do the work. They did the work. But they did the work, but it wasn't like they did the work according to a plan. I don't know anybody. Of the billionaires who I've paid attention to, none of them had a plan to become billionaires. There is no plan to become a billionaire. So people say, oh, I want to be a billionaire. I'm like, yeah, I probably can't help you. But if you've got a business that you want to 2x to 10x and it's in that range, I can help you. And I'm very, very good at it. And it's because I understand it. I've developed models that will allow you to grow a business like that, but they're not cookie cutter type models. If you were going to bake cookies, and someone gives you one cookie cutter, it just does that like that one reindeer. What fun is that? But you can bake cookies and make them any way you want. That's where I am, right?
So that's your sweet spot. So what do you think? Somebody who's already hitting $500,000 a year, what do you think is what's stopping them in general from 2-timing, 10-timing that income? What's the main thing that seems to hold people back in that range?
I think it's not the question I would ask, Karen, because most of those people who are at, let's call them 500,000, a million, it's not that they've been trying to grow and they can't, it's that they haven't been trying to grow. So I think what's holding them back is that they just haven't gone down that road. I think that is it for the most part. But if you want me to break that down and say what's missing from their business, I could say they probably don't have a good marketing or lead gen process. They probably don't have a good sales process. Doesn't mean they can't sell. If somebody has a $500,000 business, they are able to sell $500,000 worth of stuff they can sell, and their stuff is sellable. But they typically don't have enough things to sell. Most companies sell one thing to one customer one time. That's just the honest truth of it. And when I come in, one of my earliest transformations for a business is, I call it make the second sale. So in other words, figure out what else you could sell to that customer. And it could be the same thing twice. It could be you just sold them that thing again. Or it could be that you sold them a coexisting product. or it could be that you put them on some kind of subscription or some sort of resale. There's all sorts of things you can do to make the second sale. But that's the first thing, is make the second sale. It's really a big deal. If you have a batch of customers who used to buy from you and have stopped buying from you, or maybe they bought one thing from you, if they have people who they've sold to who have stopped buying from them, then create a resale campaign. And a resale campaign can double your business. Making a second sale can double your business right away. Adding more products to your product mix can help a lot, because if we can increase the average value of a customer, that's going to help a lot. So there's things like this. But the real reason most companies don't grow is that they don't have a plan to grow. That's really it. And then I mentioned metrics earlier. They might have a plan to grow, but they don't have the metrics to measure their growth and to make sure that the things that they have to do are in place. Let's say I'm a $500,000 business. And let's say I'm a coach. I'm going to make this really simple for myself. That I'm a coach and I have $50,000 a year clients and I have 10 of them. And I could handle a lot more because of the way I deliver what I do, but I don't have them. And what I'd like to do is double. And I want to double using these $50,000 clients that I get. So I need 10 more of them. So how many people do I have to speak to get a client? Maybe I have to speak to 10 more people. And 3 of those have to be qualified, and then 1 of them can become a customer. So I need 10 times 10. I need to speak to 100 people. Now I need to build a model that gets me to speak to 100 people. How should I do it? Should I be emailing? Should I be using social media? Should I start a podcast and invite guests of the kind of people who I want to hire me? I've been on a podcast where that's what this guy's entire model is. He only gets guests who are someone who could hire him for what he does. And okay, so I need to get 100 of those people and then I can double my business. I've done the math. That's a really simple way to do it. Most people don't think this way. Most people don't think of, how many new clients do I need to reach my goals? Boy, that's a simple way to think about it. How many new clients? How many new leads do I need to get that new client? What models can I put in place to get that many leads? And boom, now I have a growth path.
It's crazy that people aren't looking about, it's all about the numbers. You've got to know your numbers. Otherwise, how can you scale? But I wonder what it is that stops people from, I don't know, they're avoiding it. They're resisting it because they don't like numbers.
I think it's not them for some reason. A lot of people in the woo spaces, a lot of people who have more spiritual type business or more artistic type businesses or very people-y oriented businesses. I don't even know what I mean by that. But they have this bias against the numbers. I talk to people all the time and I'm spewing out about, well, we have to measure this, we have to measure that. And they go, there you go with the numbers again. I'm like, yes, there I go with the numbers, because the numbers are going to grow your business, right?
Yeah.
And I say, track everything, and their eyes glaze over. But those are the things that allow a business to grow. So you say they don't grow, and they don't grow because they don't have a plan. They don't grow because they don't track their numbers, and they don't grow because and then there's the worst part. They're not sure it's possible. I'm a big believer in beliefs. Say, what's a belief? And people say, a belief is something you think about a lot. I say a belief is something that you believe 100% without any doubt whatsoever. There's a magical writer who saying, and I've taken this up, he says that beliefs are tools for change. That's what a belief is. We think a belief is something you believe, and but a belief is tools for change, because in an area where you're not changing, a large part of the reason is because you believe you can't, or you believe it's not possible. Either it's not possible or it's not possible for you. Those are two distinct statements, and they're both important. And you get somebody who thinks it's not possible or it's not possible for them, and you get them to change that belief. And I have a really powerful belief change process. If you get someone to change their belief so that it lines up with the thing that they want to create, you've just created an opportunity for change. So that's a belief is a tool for change. It's a way to change the world.
Brilliant. And I love that because, yes, it just softens the whole thing. Like you say, a belief. Yeah. I think the belief is just a thought that you keep thinking until, yeah, you believe it 100%. But by reframing it in that way, softens it and empowers you again, because it means that you can actually change the belief that is actually holding you back.
I have an NLP belief tool, something I made up, that allows people to believe something 100%. Like you can just install that new thought process. The problem with beliefs is that people believe that they can't change their beliefs.
Yeah.
Most people believe their belief is permanent, and it's not at all. They're easy to change.
Absolutely. No, I'm behind that 100%. So what else, what other things do you think is, if anybody is listening right now and they're in that sort of bracket and they don't like the numbers, but they know they've got to face it, what else do you think is putting people down?
It holds them back because they believe they can't. They don't know what the numbers are to do it. They don't have a process that's going to allow them to make those changes. But these are all fairly complex. I say, what's the word? Simple but not easy.
Anything that's easy to do is just as easy not to do, isn't it?
It really is. So and now, are you working with the people you want to work with? A real part of this is a sad part of what stops people from growing their businesses. When they don't love their business, they don't want to grow it. So they say they want to grow it because they want more money, but they don't really want to grow it because they don't want to do more of this thing anyway, because they don't love it enough. So the automatic thing that automatically will grow your business is when you're doing something you love, whether you either can change it so that you do love it, or you can identify. I find this with clients, which is when they don't love something, I break it down and we find the things about it that they love and we find the things about it that they don't love. And we change things so that they can do more of the parts that they're really enjoying and stop doing the parts that they're not, either by changing the business model or by outsourcing or by delegating. So a lot of people are stuck because so I don't know a single entrepreneur who's got free time. It's a joke. I actually, again, I ask in the front of the room, it's a joke. Who here has free time? And it's the only thing that happens when I ask that. As a speaker, you always put your hand up. There you go. Who here has free time? And the guidance is you're going to raise your hand just like I did. And nobody raises their hand. What they do is they all giggle. They giggle, right? Like it's nervous laughter. Oh, I don't have free time. What's that? When was the last time I had free time? A lot of what I do is I give people free time. I believe that there's nothing that you can't do in 4 days that you already do in 5. Nothing. I've done research on this. I've actually researched tens of thousands of people over the years. I started with an actual survey, which I paid for, where I talked to 500 people. And since then, I've been asking audiences. And the question that I ask is, how much work do you do on any average day, measured in hours? How much work do you do that adds value to your business? So ordering pencils doesn't add value to your business, as an example. Because I also asked the audience, I asked, what are your guilty pleasures? Because I want to find out what they do that they really shouldn't be doing. And one man raised his hand and he said, I love ordering supplies. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that could be delegated, couldn't it?
I love ordering supplies. So it turns out the number is 2.5 hours. And that most entrepreneurs work about 2.5 hours a day doing things which add value to the business. So if you were to make that 3 hours instead of 2.5, That's a 20% increase in productivity. God, that's huge. That could make a tremendous difference to your business. So we figure out one of the things is when I get to clients and they have no free time, I figure out how to give them free time. Both so that they can relax and be creative, and also so that they can do more of the important stuff. And that usually requires either cutting things out altogether or hiring people they can delegate to. And if they can't hire someone because they can't afford it, then they can outsource it, only pay for performance. So that's a huge holdback for people in terms of growing their businesses. But the solutions are easy. There's always things. You do time tracking, and everybody hates this. Talk about something people hate is writing down what you're doing every 15 minutes. And if you do that for a week, you will gain insight that will change your life. The simplest form of any diet, people are trying to lose weight. The simplest diet that there is, period, bar none, is writing down what you eat. You will have spontaneous behavior change. Anything that you track, whether it's what you track, what you do in your business, or you track that you're eating, or what you're doing for exercise, or anything that you will track, will induce spontaneous behavior change. Because the things that you track are always in contravention to the thing you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to lose weight and you track what you're eating, you will automatically, without doing anything about it, without even trying, you will eat less. And if you track what you're doing during the course of a work day, every time you write down something that you know is stupid, you'll stop doing it automatically. You don't have to do anything to change this. All you have to do is keep track of it. And this, by the way, is true for any aspect of life. There's none where this doesn't apply. But in business, it's really easy. You spend a week doing it. Now, everybody hates this, by the way. They hate writing down the food they eat, and they hate writing down the work that they do. But if you do it just for a week, you gain so much information, but more than the information, you have spontaneous behavior change. And you'll stop doing these things and you'll free up time. The man who was the $100 million man who you mentioned right at the beginning, when I first met him, he was working himself to death. And I got him to take off Fridays. I just said, it was the first thing I did. I said, we're going to take off Fridays. He says, I can't do that. I said, you have to do it. He says, I can't do it. And he gave me all the reasons why he couldn't do it. I said, just trust me. You can do it. And he did it. And what happened was the business actually went up. Immediately, business went up for the reasons I mentioned. He all of a sudden had free time. He could relax. He could think more clearly. And he was able to do the work that he was supposed to do with much less pressure. So he immediately started making more money. And the other thing was his wife fell in love with me. Because
she got him back.
I gave her husband back. Yeah. And that just changed their lives instantaneously. It was like the first day we were working together, I convinced him to take Friday off and see what would happen.
I can see that because I know I've been caught up in this trap before now where I'm just busy being busy. And I know for somebody who has got ADHD, something I have learned, which I utilize every day now, and it's amazing, is called the Pomodoro technique.
Yes.
So I have my list of just unnegotiables, like you say, there are a certain amount of time I've got to spend. Maybe it might not be specific jobs that I love doing, but it's part of the job that I do love doing. So I've got to do it. It's an unnegotiable. But I set my time. I say, Alexa, time 25. No, don't Alexa. 25 minutes. And then that way I know I'm focused. I've got this one thing to do in front of me. I've only got 25 minutes to complete it. I might not complete it, but I'm going to get a lot of that job done. 5 minutes, complete break, switch off. Even if I'm in the swing of it, I'll put music on. And I come from the fitness industry. So I've gone from doing loads of fitness to nothing. I've got a standing desk now, but normally I'm sat behind my computer. It's no good. So I do a 5-minute, what I call it a micro workout. It's a micro workout. That's it. And then I go back to my 25 minutes. And I have, funny you should say about you said 2.5 hours. I have 4 blocks throughout my day for these unnegotiable. So it's about 2 hours. And it's amazing. Yes. Funny enough, I get it done.
I bet you do. So
before I would waste all day maybe trying to complete the same tasks.
I used to call it time boxing. And then somebody gave it, some consultant called it Pomodoro technique. So the way I use that is I spend my day on Zoom with a partner. So it's because I work by myself out of my home that this is like having somebody in the space with me. So we're both online and we don't talk very much at all. We're really pretty disciplined about it. We don't talk much at all, but we're both there. And it's like having an office mate. And we use 50 and 10 cycles. So we set a timer for 50 minutes and we work for the whole of the 50 minutes. And the alarm goes off, and then we take a 10-minute break. You have to get up from your desk, is key to the process, and go do whatever you're going to do, whether it's washing the dishes or make a snack or do a mini workout. I pick up my electric guitar and play it for 10 minutes. It doesn't matter what it is. But that's this Pomodoro technique. The idea is that whatever time you select, and in my case, it's 50 minutes. In Karen's case, it's 25. And you work exclusively and focusedly for that period of time. And then you take a break. And in Karen's case, it's 5 minutes. Then she goes back to another 25-minute cycle. In my case, it's 10 minutes. And then I go back to another 50-minute loop. This is a great way to get stuff done. It's because you just work and you don't allow yourself to be interrupted until it's time for interruptions.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Since I found this out, I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah, I can get stuff done and completed. Because being an ADHDer, I used to be a terrible, actually not completing things. Great starter, not so good at completing. Whereas now, for me, that's massive. That's absolutely massive. That's sort of transformed the way I work. So I'm sure you've got a ton of other tools in your toolboxes for people for this. Unlimited. You've been doing it since 1996. I expect it is. So what should the listeners do next, Paul, for if they would like to know a little bit more about what it would be like with working with Paul Lemberg?
The best thing to do would be to go to my website, which is, see, it's almost there on my shirt. But my name is Lemberg, Lemberg. And my website is lemberg.com. And go to my website and you can find out some things about me. And then there's a contact form where you can reach out to me and we can talk. And that's a really good thing to do. I put together a bundle of all of my material, everything I've ever created. And there's some fabulous tools in there. And you can go and take a look at it. And it's at lemberg.com/UMB, which stands for Ultimate Monster Bundle. And it's everything I've ever created. It goes back for a long time, but these are all really good products and the pricing is ridiculously cheap. I recommend it highly.
Fantastic.
I've had friends call up and buy it and they go, this is a ridiculous deal. We shouldn't do this.
Well, there you go. You're giving back.
Yes, I'm giving back. Awesome. And I'm also cycling inventory. It's a stretch.
Paul, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're in Mexico. I'm heading out there this winter. That was on my top reasons as to why I wanted to do the business like this, is because I wanted location freedom. I haven't quite got the time freedom off pat yet, but it's coming, right? It's on the list, but the location freedom is already there. So yeah, deal. Thanks for your time today. Enjoy your afternoon over there, and to the listeners, I'll be back next week. Bye for now.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.